Yes, boys, Ryjack back here for another live stream, another transfer discussion today. A whole lot of rumors out there flying around, City making big moves in the transfer market, and Twitter is obviously going hard, going big, talking about when the signings are getting done, who's coming, who the other ones are that are not rumored yet, what's going on with all that. So today's live stream will be just to recap everything that we're seeing online, the reports from Fabrizio, David Ornstein, all the big Donnies in the transfer rumor business. So before we get into it, do leave a like on the video. Let me know if you're appreciating, you're into all the content and whatnot. Always appreciate that. Leave a sub if you're new. We're on the road to 200 subs, getting close every day, closer to 200 subs. So very much appreciated on that. And if you do like short form content, I do YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Link is in the description for both of those. So let's take a look. I have one pulled up right here, and it is kind of what we've all been thinking and knowing, and it's actually one I predicted quite a while ago. Spurs have re-engaged in discussions with Jack Grealish's representatives as they explore the possibility of bringing the winger to North London. Negotiations are expected to be complex, primarily due to financial considerations by Steve K, who is an all-right source. I won't say he's an amazing source. I've seen some positive, some negative from him in the past. But for me, this makes a lot of sense. Jack Grealish to Spurs. I've said that's the club where it makes sense where he should go. There's rumors today Son might be leaving Spurs. Spurs are a Champions League club technically, even though they had a horrible season. It makes sense for me for him to go over to Spurs. I could see him in a Spurs kit. It's weird, but it is what it is. Bevo, hello, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. It says like and subscribe. Thank you, man. Thank you. But yeah, I see Jack Grealish as, unfortunately, a failed City player. I know that's kind of splits hairs with people. In the City fan base, they say he was a major impact on the treble season, and that alone makes him worth it. But I don't know. If he was like a 40, 50 million pound player, sure, I guess. But at 100 million, our most expensive signing ever, for me, unfortunate, but failed City transfer, kind of a bust. One good season out of four. It's not one that I'm gonna look back on Jack Grealish's time here and be like, man, when Jack Grealish was here, what a time. It'll always be like, man, I wish he did more. I wish there was more. So it is what it is. If he goes to Spurs, they're expecting problems with the financials, and he's on big wages. He's got a long contract. So I don't know. It feels like a loan with an option to buy. Unfortunately, the Cancelo, the Calvin Phillips route, which is not what any of us want. We want this to be either a loan with an obligation to buy or just a permanent sale. So I would hope we can get to that point. I don't know if Spurs will do that because I feel like they can just get him on loan on the cheap, but we shall see. Bevel says, showing back the love since you're a great supporter of NIML, not in my lifetime pod. Absolutely, man. Great show you and Luke put on. Love it, always. Back to my bookmarks here. The other one, loan, sort of interesting information. Claudio Echeverri. I don't know about this source, Nico Shira, but it is an Italian source. He says that Como have asked for information about Echeverri on loan. Now, Como, of course, have Maximo Perrone, who they got on a loan to buy type deal from City. And my fear on Claudio Echeverri is if he is loaned, he becomes another Perrone. And I don't think everyone wants that. At least City Twitter is very hyped on Echeverri. They're on the Messi hype train. They want to see him. They want to see him in the Club World Cup, especially this summer. So I think we give him a chance in the summer, see how he performs at over here in the U.S. Hopefully I get to see him play when I go to the game in Orlando. And I don't know, I feel like letting him go on loan is not a huge... It's not what I think is a good idea for his career path if he's going to make it at City. There's not many people who come to mind that they're young, they go out on loan, and they come back and they end up being a world-class player. When I think of Foden, he just stayed. Cole Palmer, if he had stayed, maybe he would become world class for City, but he didn't want to go out on loan. It wasn't his thing. There's just not many players who go out on loan that come back and make it at the high level. They come back and maybe do well, but I don't know. Feels like not the one for me. Alf says, big up. Please don't loan out Echeverry. I agree, absolutely. I would be upset. I wouldn't be devastated, but I would be upset because I do want to see him play. Bevo says, got to shoot, but keep up the great work. Thank you, Bevo. Thank you for coming by. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's why he had to leave, Alf. He had to leave because he saw you in the chat, so he had to leave. Gone. Echeverry, though, I could see a loan to Como. I could see a loan to Girona if he maybe wants to play in the Spanish league, in La Liga. Como seemed like an up-and-coming team in Italy, so, maybe it's good for him development-wise. Maximo Perrone seems to be doing well there. But like I said, Perrone didn't make it. If City thought he was going to be good enough, they wouldn't sell him for whatever they're selling him for, So, I don't know. It's kind of disheartening to see that City are willing to do this. But again, maybe we'll see him in the Club World Cup, and then he'll do so well, and when we can't play him. Obviously, Pep has to rate him somewhat because he threw him on the FA Cup final instead of other players that he had on our bench. So he has to rate him somewhat. I've got some other ones. Let's talk about Gibbs White. Gibbs White is interesting. The latest news on this is he's still on the list. It's still a possibility of happening, but he's too expensive. And this is kind of the train that I've been on for quite some time now. Gibbs White is an expensive player, and is he an amazing footballer? Is he world class? I don't think so. I feel like he's good. He's solid. He's good enough to play in a team competing for the Premier League. Is he one of the best players in that team, though? Probably not. So do you want to spend 70, 80 million on that guy? I feel like no. If it was like a 40, 50, 55 million type deal, I could get behind it. But with Cherky potentially coming in, Reinders coming in, where does Gibbs White play? Who has to leave to make Gibbs White make sense? I don't know. It feels unrealistic at that price, at least. Alf says, why not get Morgan Rogers? Can play the 10, the 8, and on the wings. He's more than happy to sit on the bench. Much cheaper, too. I mean, if it's between Gibbs White and Morgan Rogers, I'm 100% going with Morgan Rogers. I think he's the better player in general. Now, Villa don't have Champions League football, I don't believe. Or maybe they do. I don't remember. But I just think Villa is probably not going to want to sell him unless they have to. You never know. Villa probably does have to sell because of PSR and all the rules and whatnot. I would love Morgan Rogers. I think he's fantastic. City boy. Obviously was an academy graduate. I would be in line with buying back Morgan Rogers. And if he has to sit, more than like Gibbs White would maybe, I think he'd probably be okay with it. Because you don't really sit that much at City like you would get to play. There's so many games. It's not like we're just going to rotate 4 midfielders. It's going to be 5, 6 guys who get a lot of playing time. So I'm down for the Morgan Rogers shout for sure. Villa has to sell because they failed UCL, according to what I heard. I didn't look into it much. Yeah, I'm certain they have to sell. There's the money between getting Champions League and getting Europa League is like, it's like 70, 80 million. So you might have to do that, sell a player so you can buy, which again is stupid. The rules are stupid. The PSR is stupid, but the rules are the rules. It is what it is. So that's the deal with Gibbs White at the moment. Seems like not a whole lot going on, and maybe that gets heated back up if Forest have to sell for PSR reasons, and he's one of their biggest assets. But they just sold another player, I think, to Lyon. They sold Danilo, so maybe they feel okay and they don't need to sell. I don't know. Another one about Ait-Nouri. Wolves have begun their search for the new left back. They expect Ait-Nouri to join City. The player wants to move. Could be agreed in time for the Club World Cup. We have until the 10th. That is another week. So today is what? What's today, guys? Tuesday. We have until Tuesday of next week to complete deals, to register the new signings. I've seen some places that you have a maximum of 3 additional players you can buy to register from your team, your season's squad. You get 3 extra players to buy for the Club World Cup. Maybe that's not true, but I've seen that on Twitter somewhere. So maybe that's why City are going so hard after Gibbs White, after Nori, Reinders, and Cherky. And those are the 3 that'll get done before the Club World Cup, before the deadline in 10 days, and we play in 2 weeks or whatever it is. And then following that, when the new transfer window opens up again, we can go back in and make some more signings. Getting round of 16 in the UCL gets you the same amount of money as winning Europa. Then again, Spurs won Europa this season, so maybe it's easier to win the UEL at this point. I seen a lot of Spurs talk and a lot of people saying that they had an outstanding season. Even though they finished 17th, they achieved their goal. And I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm taking 17th and winning the Europa League. Europa League to me is like a B-tier trophy. I don't care about the Europa League, man. Like, Champions League or bust for me. And maybe that's just because I'm like American, and over here in college we have the NCAA tournament, and if you don't make that, the other things, they all suck. Nobody cares about the other tournaments. So I don't know. Like, you can make the college football playoff, and if you are playing in anything else, nobody cares because it's not the main thing. So I guess that, like, it's different because Europa League gives a chance for, not as well-known clubs or not as big clubs, but it's Spurs. Spurs should be competing in the Champions League. Woo, you won the B-tier trophy, like, in Europe. Way to go. It doesn't erase you finished 17th and had like 21 losses in the Premier League. For me, that's insane. Maybe I'm like a little bit harsh on Spurs, but you can't be successful season if you sack your manager, which it looks like they're going to do. So I don't know. Spurs just make me lose my head a little bit. Now, the other news that's interesting is not only is Ryan Aït-Nouri the one fullback we're going for, but Fabrizio keeps putting out this stuff about Tino Livramento. Now, we all know Newcastle do have Champions League football. Like I said, they don't have to sell, I don't think, because of that cash influx. It says it's going to be a difficult deal. Newcastle want to keep him. Would he want to leave Newcastle? I mean, I've seen nothing that suggests, Tino Livramento wants to move to City. He's told Newcastle he wants to move. I've seen none of that at all online. So maybe this deal happens, but I gotta believe Newcastle are gonna want mega cash for Livramento. Mega cash. Like, I'm thinking 70 million, 80 million. He's English. He's homegrown, obviously. He's like 22 years old. Proven. I don't know, man. I feel like this is such a difficult deal. And yes, we're gonna save a bunch of money on not buying Florian Wirtz. But just because you save the money doesn't mean you can splurge that money. It doesn't make a good business to spend 80 million on a right back. I don't know what the most expensive transfer is for a fullback ever. For a long time, it was Kyle Walker. But I would guess whatever the most expensive transfer for a fullback is, Newcastle would say, beat that, and then you can have him. And I just don't think that's smart or good for your money in any way, in my mind. I mean, especially a guy who's a fullback and he's good, but doesn't really create much goals. I think he had 1 goal and 1 assist, something like that, or 2 assists, no goals, something very, very low compared to Aït-Nouri, who had, I don't know, like 8 GNA or something this past season. So I'm not feeling that. The UCL has 4 more teams and 8 teams that don't drop down anymore. That means the 12 best Europa League teams are now in the UCL. New format ruined the lower European competitions. I mean, that's true. It does make it a lot easier to win the Europa League. Like, if you look at the path Spurs went on, they beat Bodo Glimt in like the semis or something. Woo. Well done. And then you beat United, who are also horrible. I just don't know. Alf says Aït-Nouri and Livramento are perfect complementary fullbacks, one very good going forward and one who's very good defensively. I do see that as well. I just personally would value the attacking side of the fullback a little bit more. So, like, if we're spending, and you're not going to spend 80 million on Aït-Nouri, obviously, because he's got 1 year left on the contract. But I would be more open to it if I'm buying, like, the best attacking fullback in the world and then also getting a solid defensive fullback if we're, that one's the 41 and the attacking one is the 71. It's how my brain works. I can't get behind. This guy's a really solid defensive right back. Let's spend 70 million on him. I feel like we can spend money better elsewhere. I don't know. Like Munoz at Crystal Palace. I saw someone comment that on one of my videos yesterday on one of my shorts. If we're looking to not spend quite as much, just buy Munoz. And I mean, Munoz is really good. Is he as good as Livramento? Maybe not, but they don't have to spend so much money. Jack Oren says City hope to get a deal sooner rather than later. They've admired him for over 12 months. It might even be longer than 12 months from what my recollection is. I can remember a whole lot of Aït-Nouri stuff going on more than a year ago for sure. So he's been a name linked for quite some time. And I'm for it. I do think Aït-Nouri is the left back that we're going for, and it looks like it's going to be the one that gets done. It looks like the Cambiasso deal, which I know a lot of people ask me about on TikTok. Cambiasso seemingly has just completely died. No news whatsoever. Injury prone from what I understand. I'm not a big Italian league follower, but Cambiasso seems like that's just not happening at all. Pep plays a back three, though. Livramento won't go forward as much. He's also only 22, homegrown, good at dealing with counters, fits the profile we need in a Walker replacement. I'm with you. I mean, I agree that Livramento would be very good for City. I just think surely there's another fullback who could also be very good for City, who is not going to be the world record fullback purchase, I guess. I don't know. And I don't want to say, just buy Wesley. He can do it, because I've never seen Wesley play. I've never watched the Brazilian league. Of course, I don't have a clue on that. And I know Livramento will be good. So, and in reality, I don't really care what we spend. We could spend $100 million on every player. It doesn't affect me in any way. But if I'm thinking from a club perspective of, we have this much money to spend, do we spend 70 to 80 on a right back, or do we spend 40 there and then we can spend a little bit more on a more valuable position? Maybe. I don't know. Because surely right back is... Well, I don't know. Maybe you got me thinking, Alf. Maybe I'm moving towards thinking more in line with you. Because in general, a left back and a right back are not super valuable positions. But if we're going to play the system with no wingers, and the left back and right back are going to be the ones that are the wingers, then maybe they are really valuable. And it is worth spending all that money there. So that's a tough one. Some more Ryan Cherky news. There was actually some news from not that long ago, actually, about Cherky, from what I understand. Yep, Ben Jacobs said talks are now progressing between City and Lyon for Ryan Cherky. That was about an hour ago. Again, that's not really news, but it does seem like that is where City are going. They're going to spend the 35, 40, whatever it ends up being, because of the release clause. That was kind of some fake news out there. There was not actually a release clause. It was more of a gentleman's agreement, which, is obviously not binding or anything, but he only has a year left on his deal. Lyon are desperate for cash. They want to cash in on the young superstar, and it looks like City are going to get a really good deal on that. Definitely, you could get York. Oof, you got some tough names here for me. You could get Joaquin Says or Pedrosa for half that price, but we need homegrown players. We're already at 19 non-homegrown out of a maximum of 17 if we get Reinders, Cherky, and Aït-Nouri. That is true. Now, that's without counting the exits, which surely there will be some exits. So let's say, it's a good point. Let me pull it up here. If we assume those three guys come in, and that is 19, we just need to sell 2 non-homegrown players, which Ederson, I think, is 1. So we're down 1 to 18. Stones will leave, but he's obviously homegrown, so it doesn't count. Kovacic, I think, looks like he's staying now with this injury. I'm not sure he's going to be able to leave. He's not going to pass a medical. Gundogan could leave, non-homegrown. That's 2. We're good there. Bernardo Silva, non-homegrown, could leave. That's the 3rd potential. I would sell Doku, to be honest with you. I know that's probably not going to go over well with people, but I would sell Jeremy Doku. I think he's not very good and not the type of player that works for Man City under Pep. Like a better St. Maximin, which maybe is harsh, but I'd sell Doku because I don't understand what he does. I don't really get it. So I think we'd be okay as long as the right players end up leaving. Maybe Nathan Ake is homegrown, so maybe Manu Akanji leaves, but, Pep loves that guy. I don't think he's leaving. Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, Grealish leaving as well, probably. Not, I guess, homegrown, but seems like it's definitely possible to get it down if we get the three guys, Reinders, Cherki, and Aït-Nouri. Plus, if Ortega leaves, and that's another one, and we replace him with an English keeper, maybe Spike Brits is ready for the number 2 role. Probably not quite ready for that, but he's definitely ready for the number 3 role with the news of Scott Carson leaving. Doesn't help much. That's a 1-for-1. Carson's obviously homegrown. But it's a good point. It's a good point. The homegrown situation is something to keep in mind for sure, especially because next season we're going to have a lot of players who are going over that age of 21 where now they count as non-homegrown, whereas this year and last year they did not count. Some more news on Tijani Reinders. Talks are progressing. It's kind of all the same stuff. It's not a whole lot of news. We haven't gotten any pictures of him holding the kit yet. He's with the Netherlands national team, as far as I'm aware. So I don't think we're going to get any pictures of him holding up a City kit anytime soon. Maybe next week. But I do expect Reinders and Cherki and Aït-Nouri at the moment to be guys that participate in the Club World Cup. So when the deal actually gets done, doesn't really matter as long as it's done before the 10th. So we have a week. I think that'll be fine. Ederson replaced with Joan Garcia, so we won't really decrease non-homegrown. If you sell Doku, you can bring in Rogers or something. It's possible to fix the homegrown stuff. I like that one. Sell Doku, buy Morgan Rogers. I'd be for that. The point was, though, that at some point you're going to have to overpay for an English player, just how it goes. That is another good point. I mean, it's very true. You got to pay the English tax, and I know that's just how they run things over there. It's how the FA have set it up. As a guy who would myself not be a homegrown player, I kind of think the rule is dumb. I don't really understand the value of it at all, other than we're an English team, so we want players who are English to play there. Like, this is supposed to be the best league in the world. Who cares where the guys are from? Why does it matter? Just put the best players out there. Stop handicapping your teams to play English players. I don't know. Now, if the English players are the ones who are the best, that's awesome. Cool. No problem with that. I don't care. But I don't really understand why there's these rules about what country someone's from. It's just, I don't really get that. We don't have those over here in the U.S. Like, you could have a team full of players from Croatia and nobody would care. It doesn't happen. There's not a lot of Croatian, basketball players and whatnot, but that is a rule I would think should be changed probably. Anything else? We're at about 25 minutes. Alf says the rule is to incentivize English clubs to run an academy. The English national team was screwed for a while because the academies were neglected. It's easier to buy players than raise them. That is true, and it's another issue that comes in because with the stupid PSR rules, the way they're written, you can utilize your academy players, but it's actually better to sell the academy players because they're pure profit on the books. So, all these rules are it's like a circle. They try to make a rule to do something else, and there's a whole negative effect over here that they didn't expect happening. We have to put in PSR so that the clubs don't spend their way into bankruptcy. But at the same time, over here, what about the clubs who have owners who are the richest people in the world? They're not going to go into bankruptcy. It's impossible. But you can't spend because, bankruptcy. We put in a rule to do this. All these squares make a circle. Boom. I like that. That's how I would say it. All the squares make a circle. It's just stupid. The rules are so bad. They're so poorly written. City have sued the Premier League for how they write rules. Really, they just need new people in charge of the Premier League to make rules that make sense and work better for the majority of clubs because it's just dumb. And don't get me started on offsides, man. Oh, I hate the offsides rule. I would change that in a heartbeat. I would change that so fast. But that's besides the point. The other bit of news, the kits are coming out for the Club World Cup. Take a look here. This is the, I guess, home kit that we'll wear a couple of times. I don't really know if I'm into the red and black sash, stripe, hash, whatever this is called. But this is our, I mean, I like the white. It's not bad. Puma, though. We need to get rid of Puma, man. Give me, like, Nike back. Why do I hate the offsides rule? Because if a player is offsides by 1 inch, it makes no difference if he could score or not score. To me, the offside rule should be to prevent players hanging way offsides. So if it should be like the ball has to go all the way over the line to count as a goal. You have to be all the way past the second to last defender for it to be offsides. Because it doesn't make a difference. If a defender is flat-footed and facing this way and I'm running, if I'm here, I'm way on sides. But if I'm here, I'm offsides. There's no difference to me. If I'm way over here, maybe it's a little easier. But it's not any easier to score from here than here. Here to here. It doesn't make a difference. So it should be, you have to be all the way past, your whole body, all the way past. More goals would happen, which is great. That's what we all want. Nobody wants to see these nil-nil snore fests. We want more goals. And we can stop being like, ooh, is his toe an inch past the other guy's toe? Like, cut that out. It's crap. It's stupid. It's dumb. Ball goes all the way across the line to be a goal. Player needs to be all the way past the last defender to be offsides. That's my rant on offsides. Yeah, but defenders tend to face away from goal. That means you have the innate advantage. Yeah, but who says it has to be even? Who says it has to be even? You get, like, the goal is to score goals. The rules are the rules should in some way lean a bit towards offense because soccer is entertainment and people want to see goals. Like, that sounds, anti-sport and anti-sporting character, but like that's how it works. If in the NFL and over here in America, that's how it works. Like the rules, if something happens and it's boring to watch, they get rid of it because it's a TV show. They gotta do what they can to make people watch. And people hate VAR offsides. You know what I mean? If you're way past, it's a lot easier to see too. So I think it would have a positive overall impact on everything if they just made it all the way past the last guy is offside. Or just don't have offsides. Who cares? Adjust. Play better defensively. I don't know. I don't care. Offsides, like, to me, who cares? I would just get rid of it, to be honest with you. The rule leans towards offense already. That's why teams defend so much. Back in the day, defenders could challenge much harsher and get away with it. That incentivized teams to push higher up. Alf, I don't know if you watch the tournament. They hold it once a year. It's over here in America. It's like 7-on-7. There's no offsides in the whole thing. There's no throw-ins. You have to kick it in. It's great. It's awesome. It's great. Makes for such entertaining soccer. It's a 7-on-7 tournament for $1 million. It's called the Soccer Tournament. It's about to come on this month. You should watch it. It's awesome. Get rid of offsides. That's my new saying. Offsides is stupid. And I know that like soccer's had offsides for 120 years or whatever, but I don't care. We should change it. Anyway, the kit, solid, not bad, fine, I guess. This one I feel like is kind of not very nice. I definitely won't be purchasing this one when I go to a game this summer. There was an old City Orange kit from like 2016 that we definitely wore when we played like Barcelona once in the Champions League and we got smashed. But that one was a lot better than this one. This one I feel like is not the one. I'm not feeling this one. And then the last one is the goalkeeping kit. Fine, I guess. Who cares about a goalkeeping kit? Nobody buys those. The black one. This one is real bad. I'm not into this one. I like the black one. This one looks like you're looking out on a rainy day. You're looking out a window and it's been fogged up and you can't see much of out the window, and the rain is coming down. It just, I'm not. This one's putrid. Kovacic is injured. We know that. Anything else? Anything else? KDB messages. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Nothing. Nothing. Any other news since I've been live? Let's see. Going to Twitter and refreshing. All right, we have a new tweet. We have a new tweet. Wim Mouthfoot, hello, I'm a Bruges fan. Hey man, how are you doing? Alf is a Bruges fan as well. I wish I could get into other leagues other than the Prem, but over here in the US, we don't really have access to a whole lot of leagues other than like the Prem and La Liga and kind of the Italian league. But that's kind of it. Don't really show anything else over here. But I know Bruges are big time. I was a Club Bruges once when I did a football manager thing. That was fun. So, big up the Bruges. Big up the Bruges. City will spend around 45 million euros to sign Ait Nouri from Wolves. They believe the Algerian is better than Milos Kerkez or Andrea Cambiaso, which source TBR Football. Maybe a good source. I don't know. I'm not super experienced on them, but someone was on a show recap of Club Bruges season. Oh, you were on Alf's show? Cool. Nice, man. W. Well, welcome to my channel. I appreciate you stopping by. Anything else? And Bremo wants $250K a week, which is quite a lot. Tijani Reinders could be completed as tomorrow, which is nice. Not a whole lot of other news, but that's cool. I mean, that's basically most of the transfer stuff that I have seen from City. I would expect Ederson. I know Pep had those comments where he said he didn't think Ederson or Ortega were leaving and they want to stay. That's probably just Pep talking out his butt. I feel like one of them is definitely leaving. Ortega wants to play. Ederson wants the bag. So, like, that's just, I don't think Pep is correct in saying that. My personal opinion, I think one of them will go, potentially both of them, and Costa is the most likely at the moment. Maybe Joan Garcia, as Alf pointed out earlier as well, is an option, but I don't know. Feels like he's going to Barcelona at the moment. Costa is the other one that's mentioned. Donnarumma's name thrown out a bit, but not for me, not a Pep style of keeper. I mean, he's obviously very good, and I'd definitely take him. I think he'd be great for us, but different style than what Pep has wanted. So I would be very surprised if he, was like, yes, Donnarumma's the guy. Anyway, that is all the news from today, as far as I am aware. I do appreciate you guys coming, hang out with me. Nice little 35-minute discussion on the news. I'm going to put out some shorts and some TikToks as well, so do check me out on those if you're not already. I do appreciate the love on TikTok. The love on TikTok has been crazy. We're at almost 1,400 followers on TikTok, so we need to get those numbers over here on YouTube very soon. Thank you guys. I do appreciate it, and I will be back as soon as there's some more news. Of course. See ya.